Well, greetings there, blade lovers. And we have something a little different today for you. Of course, what you see before you is not a liner lock, not a flipper knife, except in a different classification. And certainly not a fixed blade, but when it's opened and closed, it is very much like a fixed blade. This, of course, is a Balisong knife. And it is not just any Balisong knife. This was the first Balisong, or one of the first that I'm aware of, from the Prometheus Design Werx company, who makes that very interesting Terrain 365 knife, some of which are made from Terravantium, an interesting dendritic steel that has no iron content and is completely unrustable. Not the case with this one and some of their others. This is M390, and this is the SPD Invictus Bali B, and this one's in carbon fiber scales. They make another one with all titanium, and it's a very interesting knife because they have touted this as a utility Balisong. I believe that means with the thought that it's meant to be used as an EDC knife and not so much just for flipping. We're going to open her up in a minute, but some of the detail work here is pretty incredible. The handle is made from one piece, each of these four sections, from one piece of billet titanium. And I will read a few specs off their page, and of course we'll measure it up. They used a very nice kind of a crosshatch pattern. I don't know if it is a crosshatch pattern. Kind of a straight up carbon fiber, but a very nice pattern. And they have their, I guess I'll call them fullers on the handle that match the ones that they use on their blade. So beautiful titanium pocket clip. It's kind of a work of art, you know. As far as utility knives go, coming in at around 365 is up in the territory of Riat, and those knives, of course. And this was purchased from Lamnia in Finland. So they had like 2 to 3 day service. They put it on a like a 2-day express UPS, and comes all the way across the Atlantic to where I am in the Northeast very quickly. I would say in like 2.5 days or so. Pretty incredible service. And it's better service than you're getting from a lot of U.S. based companies. So we're going to look at everything about this knife, but first let's open it up. And I'll give you the blurb off of the Design Werx webpage. So they are saying the SPD Invictus Bali carbon fiber is a utility butterfly knife featuring titanium billet handles with carbon fiber scales, a Bowler M390 blade, bronze bushing pivot, and a titanium spring latch. Additional details include jimping on the ears and back spacers and a billet titanium pocket clip. Taking the design cues from our Invictus folder, we created this butterfly knife version, precision made in a utility form factor for those that prefer a quote-unquote working Balisong. So that is from Design Werx, Prometheus Design Werx, and you can see, if you're familiar with the frame lock version of this knife, it has almost exactly the same blade. In fact, it's slightly longer. It is not a large Balisong. I would call it a medium. It's not a small or miniature. It's got about a 3 3/4 inch blade if you measure from the ends of the handle segments. They use tang-based pins as opposed to what they call Zen pins, which are integral with the handle. It has a very firm latch when it's closed, and it is noiseless. It's like a silent Balisong. So ultimately what's happening is that pin on the tang there's two of them, interacts with the a slight indent on the handle and 2 points on the handles, there and there, and also when it's opened, there and there. Now the pins are steel. The contact points on the handle is titanium. Not sure what the longevity of that will be, but there certainly are knives out there where you have steel locking bars against steel blades, and you sometimes have frame locks with titanium against steel. So we will see, and of course if there's any issues, I think I would take up the Design Werx company on a little warranty work. But so far this is a gorgeous, smooth, beautiful Balisong. There is their octopus with the trident logo for Prometheus. These are steel, and haven't checked them out yet, but they are T8s, I believe, on both sides. There's your M390 marker. The only very slight issue that I found is that this isn't absolutely perfect. There's a little bit of variance you can pick up with your fingernail there. Nothing really to complain about between the titanium bolster and the carbon fiber. And we'll call that a bolster, but really it's all part of the same piece of titanium that constitutes the frame of the handle. The clip is really smooth in and out of the pocket. I'm not sure how much tension is on it, but it works extremely well. And it goes down fairly deep into the pocket with just about a 1/2 inch sticking out. Now here is the latch, which you can see the spring there stays right there as you're using it. And I don't have a lot of room to flip the Bali in front of the camera, but there's almost no noise. It's running on phosphor bronze washers, as many Balisongs do. There are some exceptions. Some of the companies, even such as Kershaw with their Lucha model, is running on bearings. But they use a beautiful bead blasted finish on both the titanium and on the Bowler M390 blade. I keep wanting to say 690 because that's N690. Anyway, never mind. There's your fuller, as I was mentioning. It's a fairly thick blade stock, and we will measure everything up. And that swedge is even fairly thick out to the point to their somewhat trademark spear point blade. So very similar blade, except for the two, what would you call it, choils, yeah? Kind of a finger choil on the top and the bottom, so you can pinch grip this if you needed to do some fine work. But let's do this. Let me bring out the tape, and we'll do an overall length. And we're talking, I'm going to call it just shy of 8 1/4 inches overall. And just shy of, not by much, 3 3/4 inch on the blade. And we've got a cutting edge of 3 1/4. So you've got a lot of choil there, which does make it convenient for using it. And you've got a pretty decent amount of cutting edge, and it is a pretty steep grind considering the thickness of the blade, but let's talk about the thickness of the blade. If I grab it, right there we've got 4 millimeters, so pretty stout blade stock. Handle's pretty slim. I'm going to call it 0.52. And finally, a weight. Of, scale's a little tippy again, just under 4 ounces, so 3.965. Pretty lightweight, which was the first thing even when I had the package in hand. By the way, comes in this nice zipper pouch with their logo. Pretty plain and simple. Some inner pouches inside the zipper pouch. Kind of a Cordura. Pretty typical of WE and Bestech and some of the other knives that are higher end. And yes, this is higher end. But the action is really butter smooth. I mean, I've got knives with bearings, I've got knives with washers, and they really tuned this up nicely. The one thing is that you really got to crunch the handles in order to close that latch. It's very tight. And I believe the intention there was that if this is kind of a working and utility knife, that you want it to stay closed and you want it to stay open under harder use. Now, let's put it out there and do a compare next to a Bradley Kimura Balisong. And you're going to see that the Kimura is longer by about 1 inch. And I thought the Kimura was a smaller knife. And here we have the Boker made Balisong. And we have here also a little more than 1 inch longer. See if I can get the pommels lined up. Yeah. So it looks pretty small next to those guys, and it's going to look very small next to the Lucha by Kershaw. Of course, you can't see it, can you? Move them down here. There we go. So 4.5 inch blade on the Kershaw Lucha. Lucha is running on bearings, and you can hear it clack around. By comparison to the Invictus, this is a noisy knife, and this is running on bearings. The noise is mainly coming from the latch. Same thing here. I mean, they do give you longer handles than a blade on the Kimura, so that you don't encounter the tip against the latch. However, the latch still can get caught like that. So even though they are touting the Invictus as a working or utility Balisong, meaning a knife that you can carry with you and use, and not necessarily, you know, do your Bali tricks with, it is pretty smooth and pretty useful with those maneuvers. Funny, on this guy, latch won't stay locked in the open position. Probably just not pushing it in tight enough. Interesting. Okay. Not going to fight with it. But we've got the Zen pins on this one, and you can see the tang is shaped to accept those pins. You have the same thing on the Lucha. You can see the tang is set up to receive the pins that are inset in the handles. Now, I saw one guy do a review on YouTube, kind of posing whether or not the Zen pins were better than the tang pins or not. Not sure. Again, time will tell. As far as function goes, they're fine, but the way they got this tuned, it is pretty tight in both the open and closed latch position. Now here is the jimped thumb ramp on both sides, what they call ears. So these are the ears of the Balisong, if you're unfamiliar with the terminology. There's that spring latch which stays completely out of the way when you're flipping the knife. And again, it's a great flipper, but they designed it to simply be strong. Again, one of the advantages of the Balisong is that in this position, it's a virtual fixed blade knife. That blade is not closing. You've got that pin on both handles supporting, and it's completely rigid. Obviously, same thing in the closed position, but you're not using it in the closed position. But it is an incredibly smooth Cadillac of a, well, for lack of a better term, maybe not quite Rolls-Royce, of a butterfly knife. We'll take another look around. There are your, even the screws have kind of a sheen to them. I mean, beautifully machined screws. They stick up just a little bit, but you don't feel anything. And that latch has its own jimping on it. It's a little sharp on the edges here. Not this way, just grippy enough to unlock it and lock it. And again, that clip, it's held in with one screw, but it is inletted into the carbon fiber handle slab. But it definitely stays out of the way. You could certainly open this knife, keep it in the hand in the open position, and use it for whatever you need to use, then close it back up one hand. Now you could carry it in the pocket with a clip. You could certainly also get a pouch or what we used to call back when the Balisong company, later known as Benchmade, was producing knives. Can't see what I'm doing in front of the camera. Again, it takes a good squeeze, but it definitely locks up. But you've got some sharp edges here, but that's where the jimping comes across, and you have the sharp edges of the jimping right on the edge. Okay, so we'll see whether or not this is a keeper. I have good feeling that it will be. As a user, it's kind of a pricey user, certainly. But when I saw the components and I saw the little bit of the advertising on it and what they are offering, I figure I would give it a try. Again, I highly recommend Lamnia for quick shipping, free shipping. I think over, forget what the amount is, 150 or so. Check them out. It's lamnia.com. I'll leave the link, and I'll also leave the link to Prometheus Design Werx. Hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to give it a like and subscribe. We'll be back with you soon.